Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Life. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful day. And wherever it is that you may be joining us from around the world, thank you, as always, for your continued support. We are so excited that this month was a great month for us as far as downloads. We had 2,500 downloads of all of our episodes combined or in any which way of combination. But regardless, we want to thank you, or I want to thank you personally for making My EdTech Life part of your day, part of your listening pleasure, and even part of your learning. So thank you as always. As you know, we do what we do for you to bring you some amazing conversations with amazing guests, with professionals, educators, consultants, and anybody in the education space that we can learn from. And a big shout out to EduAid, who is our sponsor. Thank you as always, EduAid, for believing in our show. Thank you so much for all of the support, not only that you bring me here to the show, but also to all our educators around in our space. So again, I'm really excited today to welcome a wonderful guest, somebody that I've been kind of following for a while now and following on TikTok, following on LinkedIn, has some really great posts, a lot of learning that we can do from her. And she definitely questions a lot of the things that we do, which is great because the more that we do that, the more that we learn together. So it's great that she puts some amazing questions where we can all start a conversation. So I would love to welcome to the show, Sophie Theodorou to the show. Sophie, how are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for being a guest here on this show. Like I said, I'm a longtime follower. So thank you for making, a little bit of time to be here so we can talk about all things ed tech.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me. I'm a huge fan of the show and of yours as well. So I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, Sophie. Before we get started, for all our audience members who may not be familiar with your work yet, can you please give us a little brief introduction and what your context is within the education or ed tech space?
Absolutely. So I am a sixth grade teacher. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and I've been teaching for about 3 years. And then over the last year, I have always really been into technology ever since I was young. And since ChatGPT came out, I've been following that. And so last summer, I remember being on TikTok and I saw a video of a teacher giving a tutorial on how to use one of the AI tools. And I'm like, hey, I could do that. Like that, I use these already. So I started making videos and teaching other teachers how to use AI, how it can help them save time on administrative tasks or just giving my tech tips, and kind of grew that way on TikTok. And then through that, I taught all last year full time and was doing content and started doing some professional development sessions and just have been on the AI and education train for the past year and really been enjoying it and have gotten really cool opportunities. And then this upcoming year, I'm going to be working in EdTech full time. I got the opportunity to take a leave of absence from teaching, so I can always go back after, but just try something new this year and just contribute to AI and education in the best way I can.
That's wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing that experience because not only is your content wonderful and the way that you present it and, it's really entertaining and you really learn a lot from it. And I love it. Like, as far as TikTok, it's just that bite-sized PD that's just enough to pique your curiosity and go try it yourself with no, just, you don't have to worry about it. You experiment, you have some fun. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but it's all great. So thank you so much for doing that as well. And I'm really excited also that we'll talk a little bit later about the show with your transition into ed tech. And we'll learn a little bit more as far as being able to take a leave. I had never heard that before. So that is amazing. So we'll learn a little bit about that too as well. So Sophie, let's go ahead and get started. I know you mentioned, you were on the AI as soon as ChatGPT came out, seeing it, learning it, playing around with it, sharing your experiences. But tell me a little bit as far as how you felt as a teacher as this tech rolled out at Gen AI. You see ChatGPT rolling out in 2022. What was going through your mind initially? Were there any fears, any concerns? And then as the time has gone through now, presently, how has maybe your thought process about the tech changed and what are you seeing? I know it's loaded, but we'll kind of unpack some things there as we go through the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So at first, when this kind of boomed last summer, ChatGPT came out. At first, I thought it was awesome, and just because I teach upper elementary, middle school, I wasn't too concerned about in my own classroom the essay writing, cheating, and I work in a very low technology school, so we don't really have access to computers. So that end of it, I wasn't worried too much about. On a broader scope, a little bit, but I didn't have any fear towards myself being replaced or teachers as a whole being replaced, just because the technology was so new. It's like, okay, great, it can answer a question, or it's just a more Google essentially. I was more excited about it because I'm like, oh my gosh, this can help me so much because now I don't need to spend an hour writing this email out. I can edit it with Grammarly, or I can help draft a part with ChatGPT, or this can help me so much with time saving, or I can differentiate a text level because I have, like all teachers, classes full of different level learners. So this is a huge plus for me. So I was very positive at first. And then as things started to progress, I think rapidly would be an understatement. So things are moving so fast. My worry just grew a little bit more just on a wider scale with EdTech and OpenAI and AI on a broader scale. I almost got the feeling that it was moving too fast without being ethical or without having the proper guidelines and policies in place before we take these leaps, which again, I wasn't surprised because capitalism, but that tended to happen. So right now I'm cautiously optimistic. I know that's a buzzword, but I'm always optimistic about technology and tech forward. But again, we need to use it responsibly and be educated upon it, because without that, then things can really go wrong. And so I think all institutions should really prioritize teacher training or teacher awareness with AI so that we know how to use it properly and avoid mistakes or possible data breaches or anything like that. So,
Yeah. And it's very interesting because I think your story resonates with so many, and especially like myself, just very excited about the tech, during that time. I mean, I'm still going through my doctoral process. And so I had already been playing, with some Gen AI and, writers and this and that and understanding what they were. And then, of course, we see ChatGPT come out. And I remember my last course saying, hey, we're looking at tech trends. And I said, hey, well, I want to write about this. He's like, well, are you sure? Because that just came out. There isn't enough research and so on, at least what we're seeing, how this will affect our space at that
mhm.
given time. I said, no, let me go ahead and do it. And I mean, there's plenty of research going back even before 2022 as far as some of these models and things of that. But that is where kind of on March 23rd, I turned that paper in. And from that moment on, I was like, oh, I think I need to pump the brakes a little bit because as excited as I was from November, but up until that time, like you mentioned, it was going way too fast. And we weren't at that point where we're seeing some of the things that we're seeing now within, just I guess, the scope of the data, how it's being harvested, how it's being used, data privacy issues, things of that sort. And it just seemed like right now, a lot of companies are just putting those initials onto their product. And just it's a money grab. I mean, I've seen washing machines. They'll say, it's something, I forget what brand it is, but it'll say AI washing machine. Like, yeah, it's like, oh, okay, depending on the amount of clothes you put in, it's going to go ahead and cycle through. I was like, but, it kind of already does that, weighs things out and so on and whatnot. But,
Yeah.
they just put AI on those things. So anyway, going in through the research, talking about data rentiership, which is what a lot of companies do, believe it or not, when they say, hey, we're going to give you this free product. Well, nothing is ever free. There's data that is taken from you as far as your clicks, as far as your likes, what it is that you're going through. And so that's where the term data rentiership kind of scared me and made me pause saying, hey, these companies are selling our data to these third parties for money. So they're getting paid for my clicks and things of that sort. So it was just a little scary, and
Mhm.
then much more so when you see the terms of service for a lot of applications that'll say, hey, yeah, you can go ahead and use it. And they're pushing it for the K-12 space. But if you read the fine print and if you go further down, further down, you start seeing some of the jargon there. And it
Yeah.
kind of raises some eyebrows saying like, well, you need the parental consent. No, we don't use your data, but we may use your data for third parties. And then those third parties include open AI and include these companies and so on. So, like you said, cautious advocate for me, you're cautious optimist. So, we're kind of in that same boat where I'm really trying to find that middle ground. But the more that we're seeing this go by really fast, and then the more that we're seeing a couple of things transpire in the news, it's kind of like, oh man, I'm trying to reconcile both worlds and trying to be fair because I'm very tech forward, but at the same time, I don't know how fast I can go with this because of what I'm seeing. So, what are some of the things that you're seeing in your space? And then, of course, as you do consulting work or you're working with teachers, what is the overall feeling with maybe your colleagues that you saw this last year? What were their thoughts?
Yeah, great question. The original, I guess, feedback I got from my colleagues in my own school was the initial wow factor, I think. But because, like I said previously, I'm not in a very tech forward school, we don't have a ton of access to technology. So when I showed them Eduate or I showed them some of these possibilities, they were just wow, like wow, wow, wow. And didn't really have time to even think or even maybe don't even know about data and selling things to third parties and things like that. So I think in my own school, in my own province here in Canada, that there's not enough awareness around it. And so that's why I'm really passionate about producing my content and teaching teachers in my own province about it. But on a wider scope, like the initial reaction again is always that wow factor. But then as we hear more and more come out, then even especially administrators become more aware of the data and where is this going and is this safe? And well, we don't have a policy yet, so we're not going to touch that. Or we don't have a policy, go for it, right? So I've been given a lot of freedom, but I also know what to use and what not to use. And I know how to check those terms of service. And I know which tools sell my data, which ones don't, which are safe for kids under 13, which ones aren't. But not everyone knows that. And these sites and these tools and these apps don't do a good enough job of telling people, especially people who are new to AI and still kind of on that wow factor train and wouldn't even consider this at first, because I know I sure didn't when I was the first month or two into my AI exploration journey. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Mhm.
But online, especially LinkedIn, where I can connect with more like-minded, like tech forward, really into the AI space, I see a lot more awareness and concern and just blatant conversation about data and where it's going and how to keep our students safe. So I really like that aspect of it. And I love how there's more awareness being brought to it, more webinars, more trainings as we go, more and more policies and guidelines being developed, which is great.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. Like you mentioned, especially this year, at least I know that for us, like we're kind of in this bubble where we think like everybody already has access to it and everybody knows about it and so on. But there are a lot of school districts out there that haven't really even touched it. Like they know about it. But a lot of times, especially here in Texas, and sometimes it's hey, it's all about the test scores. So if it doesn't deal with our STAR exam and those conversations kind of fall by the wayside very often. But I think that the language for sure will definitely need to change this year as the school
Yeah.
year starts for those data privacy agreements. And especially if CTOs really need to get that information as far as, like you mentioned, reading through the terms of service. Where is my data being stored? Is it stored locally? I've reached out to a couple of platforms that are being used here in the US, but the company is not from the US, and they're like, well, the data's stored in Germany on this server. I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, is there some kind of regulation of
Yeah.
where the data is stored? And what if a school district says, hey, in this DPA agreement, I want to know that for sure my data is not leaving the US or maybe much less leaving the state. I want to make sure that this is here locally. Are those companies going to make those changes? Or is it even possible? Or is it even going to be feasible for them? Or do they just say, hey, you know what? There's other schools that may not even know about this. So we'll just talk to them instead and we'll offer our $2,000 pilot. And then the following year, we'll charge them $16,000 per school to use this tech and so on. So for me, I think that CTOs really need, or anybody in the upper level really needs to do their research as far as that is concerned. And the other thing too that concerns me is many times, and like I said, and I've mentioned it on the show, many times, before getting into this role, being a teacher and going to a conference and just being excited about this app that maybe when I come back to my campus, I don't have access to, or we don't have an account. And then I'll just say, oh, I'll just create it with my own email. And now I'll go ahead and connect my students and so on.
Yeah.
And you're doing those things, but you don't realize, like, wow, there's a lot of liability there. So my concern is that for a lot of CTOs, and like I mentioned to you, there's going to be teachers like myself that were very excited when we go to conferences, we come back and we want to access something that maybe our school hasn't purchased. Maybe we're just very excited and we haven't even run this through our CTO at all whatsoever. And we just go about doing it ourselves, whether it's with our school email or maybe say, you know what, let me bypass this with my personal email. We never realized, and I never realized the dangers of that back in 2018. But now with something like this, my biggest concern is, Sophie, is there's a teacher that's going to be so excited to come back. They're going to try one of these platforms because they're a freemium. You know, hey, you try it out, post it on Twitter. I'm going to send you a shirt and some stickers. So I was like, hey, I want that shirt and stickers. So I'm going to go ahead and try it out in my classroom. And what if something does occur? Who's the liability going to fall on? Is it going to be on the district or is it going to be on the teacher? So those are some of the things that I like to ask and just am concerned with, because as we move on forward, like you mentioned, there's many apps that really hide all that additional stuff very well. And it's usually at the very last letters and at the of that contract and the
Yeah.
terms of service and so on. And many people don't get that far. They'll just say, oh, COPPA, FERPA, okay, I'm good. I'll just sign off on it. So those are some of the things, like I said, that I battle with, because I know that they're trying to do good for education. We need help. We want to help out our teachers. But at the same time, a lot of people say, well, in the name of progress, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. But there shouldn't be those dangers, or we shouldn't be putting our teachers, number one, in that kind of danger of liability. Number two, our students also with any kind of data that they're receiving, as far as inaccurate data, fabrications, as far as working with chatbots and so on. How do we know that this actually works?
Yeah.
So I want to get your thoughts on that, because I know you and I are very vocal on LinkedIn, or we follow a lot of people and we're highly opinionated and just trying to get that thought process out. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I think it, even before we dive into that, I know people listening are into EdTech and they know what a CTO is, but for those who don't, I know I didn't know what a CTO was a year ago. So a CTO is Chief Technology Officer. So they work with the CEO and they oversee like the back end, the software and all that data essentially. And a lot of the times, rightfully so, they're not teachers. So I'm thinking, like, are they even considering this stuff? I would assume they would be because they know about data and all of that. But yeah, so absolutely. And about the liability, who does it fall on? Does it fall on the teacher? Does it fall on the district? Do teachers even know about data breaches and data privacy? Some might not, especially those who aren't as technology forward or focused. So it just goes back to awareness and training. But yeah, that's scary, because at that point, if you created an account with your personal email, you said, I accepted the terms and conditions. And so then the liability is off the platform. So now it's on you or the district.
Mhm.
And that can be scary in case something goes wrong. And there is a chance of that happening when you have 30, 60 kids using this account, right? So I totally agree with you. And yes, I work in Canada. I find that we're a little bit 1 to 2 years behind things that's happened in the States. So in my experience, I haven't had any platforms blocked. We have nothing really blocked on our servers other than Facebook and Netflix. So that's great, but it's also scary because, again, like you said, you go to a conference or you see a TikTok or you talk to a friend. Oh, I'm using this great platform. And you don't know any of the technological background stuff. You're just going to start using it. And I've been there, and yeah, and you just aren't aware of the risks. And unfortunately, a lot of districts and admins, they see AI, but not all of them have the capacity to deal with it at this time. They have not bigger pressing issues, but other pressing issues. And so I think just the importance of it and the awareness and just strict guidelines around it are so important just to protect students at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think I love what you said, as far as, again, And it's the word that keeps coming around, like awareness and
Mhm.
training. And there really isn't enough of that. And as much as, for example, you and I can post contents like me through the podcast and you through TikTok and social media and a lot of the great things that you post on LinkedIn and so on, it's not getting out there and it's not getting out there quick enough. And I
Mhm.
think really as a district, it really needs to work together to create your own, obviously, policies and make sure that awareness is known from the top down. One of the things that kinda concerned me too is, and it kinda goes into what we may be talking about too as well, because we're talking about the hype, and there's so much hype around a lot of the AI and, of course, a lot of the platforms, and we see it day in and day out on all social medias because everybody wants to post how easy this is gonna make my job, how easy this is gonna be for students to learn, how easy this is gonna be for enhancing learning, and so on. But there hasn't really been a lot of research on that. So what happens is we follow a lot of people on social media and now we're like, hey, well, I don't want to fall behind. That FOMO, I see what they're doing. And oh my gosh, I see that they got shirts and I see that they got these stickers. And oh my gosh, they're presenting and doing those things. And for a lot of people, they kind of see all of that, the glitz, the glamour, and I always mention that the glitz, the glamour, the stickers, and all of this swag, and
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and just start doing this, pushing it without, like you said, that regard to what may be happening on the back end. And God willing that the students aren't in any danger as far as any of the outputs and so on. So what happened is I was in a webinar, I think it was this Monday. I was
Mhm.
in a webinar or maybe the last week, but they're talking to these superintendents that are, oh, we're so forward thinking and we've created our own LLMs for our teachers and students. And I was asking the tough questions, which they didn't have any answers to at all whatsoever. And I was thinking to myself, how safe is this? And where do you get to the point where you're really buying into the hype and you're saying, I'm creating this for my own school? Now, mind you, these are superintendents for not necessarily like big districts, but some of them are like private schools and they have a lot of money to do these things. So where does that also leave us that may be in public schools that, like you mentioned, even like for yourself, that you are like, you feel you're 2 years behind. You may not have adequate tech. A lot of schools down here in my area too may be falling behind. So then there's that price issue too as well. There's the freemiums. There's a lot of variables that as much hype that there is about this, not everybody will have access to. So I know you posted something on LinkedIn and talking a little bit about that. So let's kind of dive into that and
Yeah.
into how this world of AI has now gone into, I want to say, I don't know, I guess ambassadorships or unpaid internships. That's what I like to call
Oh,
them.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that and what has been your experience or maybe what you've been seeing.
For sure. Absolutely. Great question. Yeah. At first, I thought it was great a summer ago, or not a summer ago, a year ago,
Mhm.
last summer. So it seems that, okay, I'm an early user of this platform and I'm an ambassador or I'm a expert or I'm a pioneer, whatever it might be. Okay, I feel a little bit special. This is awesome. And then they tell you you're going to have direct input in developing our product and you're going to be one of the forces behind it. And but cool, that's awesome. I think that's really cool. Like, can I add this to my resume? That's awesome because I really want to get into EdTech one day. So I'm there and contributing my feedback, giving recommendations on the product. How can it be better for multiple different sites, of course. Having people reach out to me, hey, can I give you a demo and get your feedback? And it wasn't until I was actually contacted by one of an ed tech platform. It was an app at the time, and they offered me something called equity. So, hey, can you maybe give us product feedback once a month for half an hour, just so we know we're on the right track. We don't have any teachers on our team right now. We're an early stage startup, and we really value your input. And I said, oh, what? So being a science major, I don't know much about finance. My dad is a big finance person. So I said, you know what? That sounds great. Can I get back to you by tomorrow? I'm like, Dad, what does this mean? And so he explained to me what holding a percentage of equity in a company means or vesting schedules and all that. I'm like, oh, this is pretty awesome because essentially you have a small bit in the company that you've provided your insights towards, and you've actually made it possible for them to have a product. Because if I'm a software developer and I'm a CTO and I'm developing a software for lawyers, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't know any lawyers and there's no lawyers helping me develop the product, it's going to be useless. So same with teachers. And if I'm that developer asking a lawyer to give me feedback on my product, tell me what's good, what's not, how I can fix it, there's no way they're doing that for free. I'll send you a t-shirt. They would laugh. So, and I think that even goes back to the broader societal belief that teachers are expendable or not what's the word, not valued in society as much as other professions, which is a whole different issue. But I think this ambassadorship or this product feedback as being a part of developing a product, or post your badge on social media because you're now an expert because you watched 3 video demos and you're an AI certified expert. So here's this, and you're now licensed to give PD on AI. It's scary.
Yeah.
And I've looked at that stuff, and not a lot of it has anything to do with the legalities or the data or the really hard hitting stuff. It's the glitz, it's the glamour, it's the, oh, look at my t-shirt, or I'm a part of this, but you're not being compensated for it. You're giving them free marketing. If they want if they want someone to consult on their product and give them feedback, you should be compensated. And I didn't know that starting off, and I gave away too much of my time and my expertise for free. And knowing what I know now, I want to vocalize that and tell other teachers about it so they don't get sucked into the same vortex that I did at first.
Absolutely. And that's something that's very interesting because like I was telling you pre-show and back in like 2018, 19 or so, I kind of fell into that, going to
Hmm.
conferences. And I think a lot of us do where we're like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, look at this product. And then they're like, hey, and then they talk you up. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm an ambassador, I'm a community leader, I'm
Yeah.
this. And then it's all about the badges. And oh my gosh, I have Google Slides portfolios of all the badges because I was so proud. I was like a Boy Scout, and then during COVID too, it's like everybody's getting badges for all of these apps and so on. And then I think, to be honest with you, during COVID was the time where a lot of teachers were obviously sharing their expertise and they're putting it out there for free just to get the app. And I think that a lot of them might have been under the impression like, hey, I'm going to get picked up by this company and things of that sort. And they'll talk you up really nice. And like you might have an opportunity and you just continue doing this work for free. Now, mind you, I do know a couple of friends that did get picked up by some companies during that time, but they did, and they will continue to do some amazing work, and they really fit in with that
Absolutely.
company's mission and vision.
Hmm.
But I think for a lot of times there are educators, like you said, that fall into that FOMO, and I want to be part of this community and that community and all of these communities. But at the end, you are spending a lot of your valuable time in these chats. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these companies are getting that market research for free.
Hmm.
They're getting all the whatever teacher wants, that all of a sudden those tools are there. And I think that there's some apps out there that are getting a little too bloated where they're putting way too much stuff. And now it's turning into something that maybe they never wanted to be in the beginning.
Yep.
But because teachers are giving this feedback, they're, I mean, it's very overwhelming. And for a lot of people that may not need all of that, you're overwhelming them and doing all those things. But not only that, but just the teacher overwhelmed too, where it's like, hey, I need to meet with so and so for an hour. Here's a $10 Amazon gift card. And I've had that happen where they're like, hey, well, we can't pay you, but we can give you an Amazon gift card. And I was like, no, thank you. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Or even on LinkedIn, I'll get people that say, hey, do you mind looking at our product and so on? And then when I tell them, well, here's how much I charge hourly, where should I send the invoice? Crickets, nothing there and so on. But it's because I learned, and I learned the hard way. And there's a dissertation by Callie Thompson that I shared after I came back from a conference. And we'll put the link up here so teachers can read into it. And I know it created a stir back in February. And I think it came up again on X or Twitter as well, because I think that there are a lot of people that are noticing that there are a lot of companies that are taking advantage of wonderful educators and teachers And especially right now that we're seeing the clear the list, and they're like, hey, everybody, if you want us to clear your list, post this, use this hashtag, use this, and maybe one of you can win this X amount of dollar Amazon gift card or whatever. And I'm like, This is so wrong in so many levels." And I even commented on LinkedIn. I said, "Hey," like, and I think it was your post. I said, "Why can't you just give the money out of the goodness of your heart? Like, how hard is that? If you're supposed to be for the teachers, why am I not seeing you do this? And you're still exploiting them during that time." And man, this is very harsh, but these are the realities of what you and I are seeing in this space.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially actually just because I work for a startup now, and I've kind of delved into the marketing side of it. And sorry, I'm just going to turn off. And that whole giveaway wish list thing, it's actually saving the money on advertising. So if you were going to go do a paid ad sequence, it would cost way more than you having 100 different educators post about you organically, quote unquote, so they can get a $200 Amazon wish list cleared. One of them can. So you're actually saving almost thousands of dollars doing that, but you're disguising it as being for the teachers and helping them out. But I can see right through that, and a lot of people can't. And that's why I want to get the message out there. If they're going to give you an Amazon wish list cleared, do it out of the goodness of your heart, exactly like you said. And yeah, I don't want to plug anyone here, but I just have to say, and they're sponsors of the show, but EduAid is that company that gives teachers opportunities or helps teachers out of the goodness of their heart. They don't expect anything in return. And I really think it's because the company is backed by two current teachers. And maybe they haven't had the explosive growth that other companies have, but I think they have. And in my eyes, they're the best platform out there because of that teacher-centered mission.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, absolutely. And it's really exactly like what you said. If it's an early stage startup doing it, still not okay. But if it's a startup that just closed a seed round with tens of $1 millions of funding doing that, that's not cool. Because where are you allocating that money to if you're just continuing to, it might sound harsh, but rip off teachers for free marketing?
And that's something that it I don't know what it was, Callie, and I think it's just maybe that you said. I mean, I'm sorry, Sophie,
Sophie.
because I'm thinking about Callie's
Yeah.
dissertation.
No, all good.
But it was something like I said in February. I went to a conference, and this is where I really just noticed it the most. And then after that, it just seems like every conference has been even that to the 10th degree. And like you mentioned, it's the free marketing. I feel that a lot of teachers, the time that they're spending is very undervalued. Obviously, they may not be getting anything other than like, hey, why don't you just come to our meet and greet and we'll give you free food. And like you mentioned, all that work and input and hours that you're going in, posting and doing all these things and showing how great the app is. And that's it. Like, okay, I got this shirt. Oh, let's meet on our Zoom and give us some feedback on all these products and how we're doing and what else should we add. They pop it in, they put it on, and now it's like, okay, like where's my part of this? And so on, because your time is valuable. But like you said, I think it's that there is an exploitation in that sense of that. And it took me a while also to kind of snap out of it. I'll be honest with you, because like I had all the badges, and then after a while, I said, you know what, like there's something just not quite right about this.
Yeah.
And and if I'm gonna do something, and if I'm gonna plug something, it's something that I really do care about, and somebody that's really taking care of me too as well. And so it's very, like I said, that's why it's very rare that if I do plug somebody, it's somebody that is very helpful and somebody that it lines up with what I think the mission and vision should be of helping educators. And like you mentioned, EduAid is like the one that I mentioned as far as my sponsor too as well, because they've done an amazing job. And like you mentioned, although you may think that they haven't grown or been, gotten as big, I think that their consistency
Yeah.
has been solid, but it's always that teacher-centered approach.
Yep.
And the fact too that I like that they're partnering up with research entities to
Mhm.
actually say, hey, can you research our app? Can you research what we're doing for efficiency and efficacy? Because they really care about what they're putting out. They just don't want to put something out and just say, hey, here's this. And now there's 200 tools. And now all of a sudden I'm like, well, what am I going to use this for? Like, I just needed it to do these simple tasks. And now I'm overwhelmed and maybe I'll
Yeah.
look for something else because this is very overwhelming. So,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, long term, the whole quality product backed by pedagogy, backed by research, backed by teacher voices without the glitz and the glamour and the sponsors and whatever and the marketing and the ambassadorship groups. They have developed a product that is so effective, and through that they will actually have pure organic marketing because teachers will find it so valuable. It aligns so well with everything they need. There's no decision paralysis because there's a plethora of useless tools that in the long run that will sustain so much better than any ambassadorship program in exchange for a t-shirt or a sticker, because this is a product that has stood the test of time. It has served teachers, it has put teachers first, and there's no gimmicks. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to add too, I know they were on the show maybe about a month ago or so,
Yeah.
but just the fact that honestly, like any teacher can also reach out to them and say, hey, and they're willing to help,
Oh my gosh,
those
I know.
teachers and work with you and so on. And just out of the kindness of your heart and just that they're so accessible too. So those are
Yes,
some of the things. And I think, like you
that's so
mentioned,
true.
there's a lot of apps that are like that too as well, and a lot of platforms. So don't get
Mhm.
us wrong. We're
Yeah.
not saying generalizing with everybody, but we're just speaking from our experience
Yeah.
and what we've seen and what we've gone through. We just don't want other people to go through that as well, where they feel like, oh my gosh, like I just wasted all of this time and I feel empty and didn't get anything in return. And we don't
Yep.
want you to feel that way because for me, for a while, I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe that I did all of this. And because of the hype, and then all of a sudden you come down, and then they're like, oh, so there really wasn't an opportunity there or
Yep.
something like that. And so, yeah, so just be very cautious, guys. And, like we're talking about this and just being honest because these are honest conversations. And we'll definitely link up that dissertation by Callie Thompson that
Hmm.
speaks to this, and just so you can understand and know what is happening. And whenever, honestly, that phrase that says, if you're getting something for free, you are the product, that's the way that I'm sure Sophie and I felt when
Yeah.
we were getting all of these things for free, but we didn't know that we were the product. But at the end, we understand like, oh, we were the product. So again, we just want to make sure that we bring that to light, have these conversations, and just see if we can get platforms to really see the value of teachers and really how maybe they can give back to teachers, not just, hey, let me just clear your list, but
Hmm.
compensation for the time, the expertise that they are offering because they are consulting, they are sharing their expertise and their knowledge to help those platforms continue to grow and to succeed. So, yeah, definitely great conversations to have for sure.
Yeah. And I
All
love
right.
what you added about like just the approachability and with the founders of EduAid, they have no ego. They'll talk to any teacher and they want to help any teacher. And unfortunately, that's just the case with a lot of these startups, which are awesome, but some of them, again, have been caught up in that thing there. But yeah, absolutely, I totally agree. And yeah, and even I was speaking with a colleague. Well, I guess I wouldn't. I don't work with this person, but I consider them a colleague because they're AI education adjacent. And this person told me that they had a demo call with a startup and then they received a Visa gift card after. And this was after I made my post and there was this discourse on it. So I'm like, is it working? This is so exciting. Like, are they finally seeing us and compensating us appropriately? So I thought that made me happy for sure.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And that goes a long way, I guess,
Mhm,
and
it
just
really
being
does.
appreciated. Because if you think about it, sometimes I think like, man, the teachers, they go through so much during the school year where like maybe sometimes teacher appreciation week, it's like, hey, you get to wear jeans all day. Really? Like I just wear jeans all day or things of that sort. And then now to get the same kind of treatment from a platform,
Yeah.
it's like, come on. But it's like I said, those conversations need to be had. So I'm really
Mhm.
excited that you got on here. We shared a little bit about that and our experiences too as well. And again, because all we want is we want to make sure that teachers are treated fairly and
Exactly.
that they are seen for the value add that they have and the
Mhm.
experience and expertise. Because at the end, we are the end users. So
Yep.
we know exactly what it is that we may need. And
Mhm.
we're helping, like you mentioned, sometimes a lot of the platforms are non-educators with nobody in education on their team. So where do they need to get the expertise from? Well, from educators themselves. So
Yep.
that's something that's very important. All right. Well, Sophie, it's been wonderful talking to you about this, but let's transition a little bit too, because I know, like you mentioned earlier in the very beginning, you are transitioning into a new role. So, can you tell us a little bit, like you go from classroom to ed tech? So, just tell us a little bit about that, maybe your level of excitement, with the kind of work that you'll be doing. We definitely want to make sure that we give you some time to plug that in because I'm very excited for you as well as you get to transition into this new role, but also that you get the opportunity to do it. Like you mentioned, you get to take a leave,
Yeah.
which means that you get to come back, which I've never heard of before, but I'm interested in knowing about that too.
Yes, absolutely. I love to talk about it. And I love, so I'm in Canada and I love hearing about the differences in our education systems. Just even speaking with primarily most of my network is in the United States. So testing and standards is very prominent there. And we don't have any of that where I live, which is kind of crazy. It's like the complete opposite. But I am on a permanent contract with my division. We call them divisions here. It's districts, same thing. And there is a clause in our contract that allows you to take up to 2 years of an unpaid leave to explore opportunities outside of teaching. So you can even teach in a different country or a different province if it if it's an international teaching opportunity, or say your spouse is moving and you need to move with them because you have a family, but you might be coming back, or you got just a really cool opportunity in policy or in government or in ed tech, right? But you're not sure if it's right for you, but still love teaching and want to maybe have the possibility to come back one day. So it's really great because, yeah, I applied for it, I got it, and I can take up to 2 years off. And then I'm not guaranteed the same exact grade and subject, but I'm guaranteed a full-time 1.0 permanent position in my division afterwards. So that's a really, I don't think I would have done it without that, because that really gives me the security net of taking this leap. I'm right. I'm only 3 years into teaching. Um, I'm in my mid-20s. I don't have a family. So I'm like, you know what? If not now, when? And I have this great opportunity. I love teaching, but I also love technology and helping teachers and students in a different way beyond just the teacher student within the classroom relationship. So I'm really excited to explore that this year. So what I'll be doing, I guess, and I don't consider myself an AI expert or or anything, but I have devoted a lot of my time outside work to researching and coming up with solutions. And last year I had the opportunity to some professional development sessions within my province and city. And so I want to continue doing that this year and bringing more awareness to AI and precisely what we talked about earlier on in our conversation, just the awareness and here are the guidelines, here are the guardrails. Please be careful, but here's all the awesome stuff it can do too. So spreading that around, I'm really excited to do. And then I'm also working for a startup called Humi.ai. I worked for them part-time last year, and they were actually the startup that contacted me being like, hey, we need teacher feedback, but we want to compensate you. And I was like, oh, this is really awesome. So I'm helping them with their, just product development, just usability, UI, and as well as growth and getting out there. And so that's why I've really honed in on this whole ambassadorship concept, because I'm like, oh, maybe Humi should be doing that. But the more I looked into it, I felt scammy. So I'm kind of exploring other ways to get us out there. And at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to the product and the usability of the product and the safety and how it helps teachers and students and what pedagogy it's backed by, what research it's backed by. And so devoting my time more to that than to facilitating some sort of ambassadorship program. So I'm really excited for that, and just continuing to produce content over TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and just be a part of some collectives, some communities, and just really, really get into the AI sphere as much as I can this next year. So
I love it. Sophie, well, that's amazing. That's wonderful. And I love
thanks.
the fact, like you said, you're taking those experiences that you've seen that may not be working, or maybe companies think that they do work. And
Yeah.
maybe just like you said, it's, and I don't want to, again, maybe just like I said, generalize. There's nothing
No,
wrong with some shirts, some stickers and so on.
for
But
sure.
there's a certain extent and a certain point where, like I said, it goes above and beyond that. But, like with your experience, what you're doing and building community and finding different ways to also, like I said, sure that the teachers feel valued, appreciated,
Mhm.
and maybe, like you said, giving back to them in a sense for the work that they may be doing is something great. And there's a lot of opportunities in that. So I'm really excited for you that
Thank
you
you.
get to bring in your vision, your experience, and not only helping the platform with their usability, user experience, and all of that wonderful stuff, but just your energy, what you're trying to do, and also, like I said, helping out our education space, our education landscape. I know sometimes conversations can be rather tough, but
Mhm.
sometimes they're not had. But
Mhm.
it's not that we're trying to be, again, very malicious or going after
No.
anybody. It's just things that we notice, that we see, that we would love to see get fixed, because maybe other people feel the same way, but maybe nobody's saying it. And we just want to make sure that we get that out there. But I'm so
Precisely.
excited. Yeah. So I'm excited for your new role, your new endeavor, my friend. And
Thank
again,
you.
if you haven't connected with Sophie, please make sure you connect with her. You'll see everything on the show notes where you can connect with her on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on TikTok, and so on. That way you can reach out to her and be part of that community too, as well, as she's trying to build that up and just be part of something that's great and something that's done differently. So please make sure that you connect with Sophie. So before we wrap up, Sophie, I always love to end the show with the next three questions. I know I've changed question 2 and 3, but question number 1 always remains the same, which is, as you know, every superhero has a pain point or a weakness, something that always kind of debilitates them, and that when that enemy comes, they know exactly how to weaken them, fight against our superheroes. So I want to ask you, you being a superhero within our space, what right now in the current state of education, it doesn't have to be all about AI, it could just be in general in education. What would you say is your current pain point?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, I'm thinking AI focused, but if I'm thinking education focused, it's a whole different conversation. So let me think here. Yeah, you know what? I think my kryptonite is the whole industry and the whole world's kryptonite at this point, getting people to accept and adapt to the super fast changes in AI, especially in education, and what comes with that. So it's changing, we know, like at rocket speed. And it's tough for schools and teachers to keep up. And learning has primarily focused on, in the past, on memorization, but now we need to teach how to use AI tools to find and create answers and this new spectrum and area of learning. So yeah, that learning curve can be super steep, and yeah, and it feels almost too much to handle sometimes with the FOMO and everything. And it's hard to understand and use these changes. So a lot of people just shy away from them or do whatever they choose. But my job, along with others, is to help bridge this gap. And we need to help people see AI's potential, but also proceed with caution at a pace that doesn't leave them feeling lost. Yeah. So I guess my
Yeah.
spinach, so to speak, Popeye's spinach, right, is a good thing. I guess my strength is my ability to break down this complex stuff, and you as well, and everyone in this space, and make it easy to understand and useful for everyone in education with awareness and whatever it might be. And by breaking these things down into manageable steps and helping educators and students see how to use AI effectively and safely, I hope that we can all neutralize this kryptonite. So
There
that's
you
what I'm
go.
thinking.
I
Thank
love it. That is a wonderful answer. I loved it.
you.
Definitely great detail there. All right. Question number 2 is, what book do you think should be mandatory for everybody to read?
Another great question. I would probably have to say, I mean, the most insightful read I've had that I think everyone should read, especially now in a world of AI, and this is an older book, but nevertheless super important and impactful, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah, just because at the end of the day, no one wants to speak to a robot. AI, I really don't think will replace humans, because human connection is just you can't replace it. It is so integral to our being, and it's the most important factor in any facet of your life, whether it be education, business, relationships. And this is a great book about communication and the importance of nurturing relationships that I believe everyone should read, because this is a skill that you'll need for your entire life, AI world, 18th century world, whatever. So that would be probably my must read book for everyone. And it's a great entry point into, if you're not really a big nonfiction person, I think it's a great entry point for anyone.
Love it. Great suggestion, by the way. Very
Thanks.
great suggestion. All right. And my last question would be is if you can have the opportunity to try out a job for a day, what job would you choose?
Oh, wow. Okay, I have two answers, and they're both kind of well, the first one would be, I have two dogs and I love animals, so I've always wondered what would it be like to be a dog for a day while I'm at work, working hard, and they just get to sleep all day. I went, what are they thinking? Their day, like, it just seems so simple and peaceful. And kind of related to that, I've always wanted to be a teacher since I was in fourth grade. Like, I had my own classroom in the basement, but I've also, again, loved animals. So I've always wanted to be a veterinarian, and kind of swayed away from that because, oh, I don't want to put animals down. That's just too sad. I don't like seeing them sick. But I've always wondered, like, would I actually like it? So I would like to be a vet for a day, I think, just because I'd have all my questions answered, because it was always a dream job. But then I kind of, like I said, got scared away from it a little bit. So probably a veterinarian.
There you go. All right. Sounds good. Now, I'm wondering if veterinarians, there are maybe a different type of, like maybe, for example, you just say, hey, you know what? I just treat the animals and help them get healthy, but not necessarily do that other aspect, and maybe just
Yeah.
leave that to somebody to say, hey, I may recommend this other veterinarian for that. I
Yeah.
don't know, because like you said, it'd be something difficult, but your love for animals to help them heal, but then that other aspect, maybe just say, hey, I can outsource that
Yeah.
if that needs to happen. That way you don't have to do it, because
Yeah.
I don't think I can handle that either.
No, I know. And
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, you are helping the animal if
Yeah.
that's what it's come to, but
Mhm.
I just don't think I could
Yeah.
emotionally
Yeah,
do it.
for
Yeah.
sure. Well, Sophie, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and just share your experiences and just hear your story. And of course, just hearing a lot of the commonalities between you and I as far as our thinking. And of course, it's not only AI, but just thinking about the ed tech space altogether. So thank you so much. And I wish you the best of luck on your new role and in your transition into this role where you're going to be working with educators. You're going to be learning so much more. And I know that your experience will definitely help our education space continue to grow. So thank you so much for all of that. And for all our audience members, thank you as always for following us and making sure that you listen to all the episodes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. As you know, we do what we do for you, like bringing you some amazing conversations like we did today. And if you haven't done so, please make sure you follow us on all socials at My EdTech Life. And please make sure you jump over to our YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and visit our website at myedtech.life, where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 285 wonderful episodes with educators, creators, professionals, founders. We've got a little bit of everything just for you. Make sure you take some of those knowledge nuggets and put them into your teacher tool belt, because they're definitely very helpful. So, as always, thank you for your support. And my friends, until next time, don't forget, stay techie.